speaker today is Dr. Neil Helm. Many people consider hard science and metaphysical spirituality to be incompatible. Neil Helm is not one of those people. He's a near-death experiencer and serves on the board of the Virginia Beach chapter of the International Association for Near-Death Studies. But he's also an expert in the field of satellite communications, has been Deputy Director of the Institute for Applied Space Research, Senior Research Scientist in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering at George Washington, President of Helm Communications, a Washington, D.C. satellite communications firm, member of the International Academy of Astronautics, senior member of the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, and has served as chair of its Aerospace Policy Committee. Associate Fellow of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, served as chair of its Communication Satellite Standards Committee, has served on the editorial board of Space Communications, a journal, and has appeared as an expert witness for congressional committees. And he hasn't stopped yet. He's completed a PhD program in transpersonal psychology at Sophia University. But most of all, he's just a great guy who's helped countless people countless times. Please welcome Dr. Neil Helm.
Thank you, Lloyd. Sometimes I wonder who that guy is. Well, I'm pleased to be here, and I got some really good guidance from the rafters and others that I can't talk politics today. It's good guidance. And because there's so many things that are more important than politics, and my subject today is transpersonal lifestyles. So you say, okay, what is a transpersonal lifestyle? Well, trans, if we go into the dictionary, trans means beyond. So we beyond the person, beyond, and then we'll go into our psychology. I'm supposedly a psychologist. And we go beyond the ego. We go beyond the self. And we, like the ego, by the way, and that's your brain. It's a computer. You know, we store things and it tells you if you ask it to, but the levels of consciousness in the conscious experiences that we all have and the consciousness beyond the person are meditations. And I hope most of you meditate. It's really, really good stuff. But it's our dreams. It's our pondering. It's all of those things, all of those experiences that we have that are beyond and outside of the brain, just outside of the computer. Those levels of consciousness, all those experiences is what a transpersonal lifestyle is. So how do we have a transpersonal lifestyle? Well, there is nearly always a transformation that is a part of a transpersonal lifestyle. And you say, well, transformation. And that's really an important word in the sense that a transformation is something that happens that is very significant in your life and oftentimes an incredibly profound experience. In my case, it was a near-death experience I had at age 5. It absolutely changed my total life as I stand here today. And thinking of these profound experiences, I will use the example today of my acquaintance. I can't really call him a friend because I didn't know him all that well, but I knew him. And that was Edgar Mitchell, an astronaut, flew on Apollo 14. And he was a Navy pilot, Navy captain. And he was in the early, and I knew most all the early astronauts. Ed Mitchell was calm and had a good family, and he wasn't a big boozer and all of that. And so they had groomed Ed to be the chief astronaut after he went to the moon on Apollo 14. The other thing that he did that was so great is when Apollo 13 got into trouble, Ed Mitchell and Deke Slayton, the 14 capsule was there in Houston, and it was working. And so Deke and Ed Mitchell got in the 14 capsule and stayed in it for all of the days that the 13 was in trouble and talked him back around. And they were the ones that told him how to take the piece of paper out of a roll of toilet paper and use it as an air mechanism that helped the 13 astronauts get back, and they stayed with him. So he was a good guy, and the astronaut corps gave him a leave of absence and told him he should go to MIT, which he did, and got his doctorate in aerospace science from MIT. And he was being groomed to come back to be the chief astronaut. And he came back from 14, and within 2 weeks, he announced his retirement. It just shook the astronautic corps. And why did that happen? On his way back, and many of you would perhaps have read and heard this story, he was looking out, and after you come around the moon and you're head back, you've got a day and a half, which are really not a lot going on. And he was sitting looking out the portal of the spacecraft, and he was looking at the Earth and all of its beauty in the clouds, and he had this transformative experience. It really just shook his soul, and he wanted to make this Earth better, and that was the formal statement that he made in his announcement, that he wanted to make the Earth a better place to live, and he would dedicate himself to doing that. Quietly, to a few of us who knew, he also said that he saw the face of God out that portal window. And he didn't use that formally, but a few of us knew that. So here he comes back. 2 weeks after Apollo 14, he retires. I went to his retirement. He had 2 retirement ceremonies, one in Houston, the other one in Washington, D.C., where the NASA headquarters group and that I was working with, we all came down for it. And NASA was really angry because they had wanted to make this guy their chief astronaut. And so as soon as this sort of retirement ceremony was over, the NASA group all left. And I waited for an opportunity to, and I had been introduced to Edgar earlier, but I didn't know him that well. But I waited until nearly everybody had left, and he was still there. And I walked over to him and I said, Dr. Mitchell, I said, I really believe in what you're doing. And it's a transpersonal experience that transformation that I've heard you talk about. I really believe it, and I'm a believer. I'm with you. Congratulations. I think you've made the right decision. And he said, wow. He said, somebody around here really understands, because most of the NASA people didn't. And I had Edgar Mitchell, up to the ARE one time, and we shared a podium together before he passed a few years ago. So that's a transformative experience. In my case, it was a near-death experience. In his case, they're called STEs, spiritually transformative experiences. And some of them don't even need to be spiritual, but just a transformative experience you can have that in your life. Sometimes it's having a baby or being married. Or in one of the other experiences I had, the first day I went to college, and I wasn't sure I was going to get into Georgetown. It was a pretty big school from a farm ranch kid in Montana. But I got in, and I remember opening a history book. I had to buy my books. I opened it up and I read in the early history of Greek Thucydides and his Thucydides oratory. And he's trying to buck up the people in Athens to fight the Spartans, and he's not having a good time getting the youth of Athens to fight. And so he talks to him and he said, "Hey, you youths, you're hanging out down at the temple. We call it the mall now. You're hanging out down there, and you know, walk along the streets, and there's crap. You put in your stuff, and I thought, pollution. And I thought, here, 360 days, 360 years before Christ, somebody is talking about lazy kids and pollution. And I thought, whoa, if this is college, I'm really going to learn something here. I mean, this is to me, was a transformative experience. And I had other ones. Bruce introduced the time I slept with a moose, but that wasn't the example of Alaska. I fell into a hot springs. I don't get along well with hot springs. I drowned in them nearly twice. But this time I fell in, and I was 30 below zero. I was totally clothed in a big M1 rifle. And I was all by myself, and I fell into a hot springs up in Alaska in the winter, 30 below, over my head. And I thought, 3 feet of snow on top of the ice that I fell through. And I thought, well, this is it. I'm not going to live. I'm not, you come to that experience that I'm not going to get out of this. I fell into water at 30 below zero, nobody around. And then I thought, well, I don't want my fellow soldiers to come looking for me, and they'll see my footprints through the snow. And for them to, and I threw my rifle out up through the hole. And I thought, well, they'll only see that, and they'll fall in too, so I've got to get out of this. And I asked God for help. And I did something counterintuitive. Instead of trying to go towards the shore and bust off the ice, I busted the ice going out deeper into the lake until I finally got it hard enough that I could crawl up on the ice, between the ice and the snow, and walk out. And again, a transformative experience. And they don't have to be, near death or even spiritual. You can have them in prayer. You can have them whenever, again, Buddha talks about pain. You have to have pain and suffering to really understand a transformative lifestyle. I don't know. There's undoubtedly some truth to that. We talk about people who came through the Depression, and we talk about now people who are who are hungry, who don't have enough food to eat every day, and they're not sure where the next meal is coming from. And that messes with your consciousness. I mean, where is the next food going to come from? And so it's a transformative, it can be, it has the potential to be a transformative experience. And you're these levels of consciousness that we all have, and you're trying to think of, how can I improve this situation? And that's also part of this transpersonal lifestyle, is that at some point you want it. So why is it important to want it? Why is it important to be transformed and transpersonal? Well, my take on this, and the way I like to say it, is we're all on a path to God. Here's God. We're all on the path to God. And we're going up this path slowly. Every reincarnation that we do, we go hopefully up this path. Sometimes we take a step backwards. Edgar Cayce talks about, in one of his incarnations, he was a riverboat gambler and a womanizer, and he took a step backwards. And he wrote about that. And, certainly some people these days are taking some steps backwards, because we know that there's some bad people as well as some good people out there. But the bottom line is that in my book, there's no hell. There's no hell. We're all on this path. And we come around again and again and again until we move up this path towards God. And that's the ultimate that we're all searching for. And at some point, we all, in our incarnations, we all realize and understand that. And we want to move up the path. And to be transformed and to understand and want to be transformed is a really good step up that path. You really want it. You want to You want to be closer to God. It's good. And thus you begin to live this transformative experience. You manifest a better lifestyle after your transformations. So what are the things that you do? And again, Edgar Cayce talks about these things that you do. There's a universal love. And well, you know, that's a sort of a fancy word, universal love. What does that really mean? It is a mindset. It is a level of consciousness. It really is where you say to yourself, I am no better or no worse than anyone else. And as we say here in our fellowship, in our ohms, when we do it, one of the last things we do, we chant together, you know, every step I take, every breath I make, we're one. We're one. If you really consciously understand that, we're one, that I am you and you are me. And it becomes, by the way, then this lifestyle becomes so much easier to live. It's so much easier because, you know, I'm you, and if I love myself, I love you. And I manifest that love to you, and you return it to me. And it just makes living. And so we find people who, through fear and then within themselves, and it's something that's within ourselves, this consciousness, this level of universal love, that they're not happy with themselves. They're not happy with themselves. And so, and things aren't going well for them. Well, then it can't be my fault. It must be your fault. You look different from me. You speak differently from me. It has to be your fault. You have a different religion, or you're different, so it's your fault. It's not mine. Certainly it couldn't be mine. So that's when universal love doesn't work. But when you've gone beyond that step where you really acknowledge that I am you, every step we take, every breath we make, once you begin to live that, and again, that's a transpersonal lifestyle. Once you begin to live that, understand that, and live that concept, life becomes so much easier. It really does. And then the knowledge, again, Edgar Cayce could go to the Akashic Records, the book of wisdom. Knowledge is so important. The Edgar Cayce, when he left, and I followed his I didn't do it within the first month or so, but he started this Institute of Noetic Sciences, IONS, out in California. Noetic, Greek word meaning gnosis, meaning knowledge, but it's more than knowledge. It's translated in English more closer to wisdom. So it's that knowledge that we incorporate through all kinds of experiences and through our transformations. And it's that knowledge that we want to bring into our lives and get rid of all this ego crap that we carry around, all these habits and this stuff that we shouldn't dwell in and wallow in. We should bring this knowledge thing, this as much knowledge as we can about who we are. Who are we? Who are we? I like the story, and it's a true story, of a man in New York City, and he was looking for something, and he got well-dressed. He was a well-dressed, well-coiffed man, and he had this big thing that he wrote on, and board. And he went out on the streets every day, and he walked up nicely to people, and he said, "Who are you?" And people would say, "Well, I'm Jane, or I'm James, or I'm Shelley, or I'm something." But then they would say, "Well, I'm a plumber, or I'm a baker, or I'm a financier, I'm a businessman, I'm a mother." And he would do about 500 a day and take them home, and then he would correlate. who these people are. And he wasn't happy with the results he was getting. He thought there would be about 2%, somewhere between 2 and 3% of the people gave the answer what he was looking for. And so after he did, I think, 10,000, he went out again to talk to 10,000 more. So he talked to overall 20,000 people, and he just walked down the street and very nicely, with a smile, said, "Who are you?" And the answer they was hoping for was, "I'm a child of God. I am a child of God," or something like that. It didn't have to be those exact words. But that's the concept of who you are and what's important to you. I'm a child of God. And he was so distraught that only about 2 or 3% of the people gave him his answer that he took his own life. But I think he made a point of his study, and it was well published at the time, of who we are, well, who we want to be. Do we want to be transformed? Do we want to be, in addition to this universal love? And Edgar Casey talks about also this service to others. To make that a priority in your life, to service for others. I'm always pleased when we hear, I guess in the beginning of the year, where certain women and men clean the altar and have a service about it. But they do a service, and we hear stories of people who've washed the altars of churches and the pyramids and things. So they do this every week before service or before mass or before whatever. They never get any credit for that, but that's the service that they do. And it's so important to serve others, to have that as a mindset, to be in service to others, and to have that consciousness. And then finally, there's a sacredness that comes with this transformation. And usually, after we're transformed and we want to get up that path more and more, it becomes more and more spiritual and more sacred. And there's a place for religion and there's a place for spirituality. They're both very, very good, and one is not necessarily better than the other. There's a place where we all in a religion get together like this and say the same things and pray the same prayers, and that's good. That's a group. God says to do that. And then there's also the spirituality, and I like the example of walking in the forest or out on the ocean and just talking to God. Just talking to God. You don't need a lot of other people. You don't need a lot of music, although it's beautiful, as we've heard today. That's the spiritualness that a lot of times we have and should seek to bring into this transpersonal lifestyle. So all of this fits together, and we develop a level of consciousness that says we live in a transpersonal lifestyle. Thank you very much.